All right, being 7 o'clock, I'd like to open the planning board meeting for October 19th, 2022. First on the agenda, we have a continued public hearing from VP Barry Development Company, LLC, Income Way Definitive Subdivision Plan off of Southbridge Road, also known as Route 169. We have an email from Tom Colbert. Randy, I'm requesting a continuance for the definitive subdivision hearing for Income Way, Larry's Way. I understand these can be closed until revisions are completely reviewed. I'm going to stop by around 3. All right. All right, do we have a motion to continue the public hearing for the ZP Barry Development Company LC and Conway definitive subdivision plan off of Southbridge Road, Route 169?
I'll make a motion to continue the ZP Battery Dev subdivision until
November 2nd.
November 2.
And we're okay with that, right? Date wise, everything works out?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll second it.
All right, all those in favor?
Gene Vincent, I.
Bill Fontaine, aye.
John Smith, aye.
Austin Nancy, aye. Unanimous. All right, next up, we have a public hearing for ZP Barry Development Company LLC special permit application to construct 2 energy storage systems, also known as Income Way, located at 280 and 294 Southbridge Road, Route 169, lot 62, block A, lot 6,
Yeah,
8.
yeah, the applicant is requested, there's still some information needs to be provided, but the applicant has requested to open the public hearing so that he can discuss some of the particulars with the application, to get some feedback from the board so they can, that the applicant can address.
All right, I'm gonna read the public hearing notice. In accordance with sections 200-3.2.6W and 200-7.2. Of the Charlton zoning bylaw, the Charlton Planning Board will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, October 19th, 2022 at 7 PM in the planning board office in person at the George McKinstry Municipal Building, 37 Main Street, Charlton, Mass. 01507, and on Zoom meeting ID 211-293-2257 on the request of ZP Development Company LLC, 10 East Worcester Street, Worcester, Mass. 01604 for a special permit to construct 2 energy storage systems. One system is proposed to be located on a newly created lot to the rear of the property at 288 Southbridge Road. The second system is proposed to be located at 294 Southbridge Street Road on the property where there is a vacant car dealership building located easterly on the property. The properties are currently known as 288 and 294 Southbridge Road, Charlton, Mass. Assesses maps 62, block A, lot 6 and 7. Both lots are located in the Industrial General Zone District. Copies of the site plan application are available for inspection at the planning board office in the town clerk's office during regular business hours. The application is also posted on the town website and the planning board. Any person interested or wishing to be heard should appear at the time and place designated or by a Zoom meeting. Meeting ID number 211-293-2257. How you doing?
This is probably best, I guess.
Yeah, go right ahead.
So with me.
Fine. Yep.
So we've got 2 separate 5-megawatt facilities here. I just kind of want to run through, so we've got comments with Graves still outstanding.
Yep.
You're aware of, and we've got some communication back and forth between myself and Kurt Neskus and Dennis Carlson as well. So we've got a couple things to iron out as far as details for Kurt and some recommendations from Dennis from the fire department. So hoping to have that for next time, but I figured it'd be good to get some of the information out of the way pertaining to the system, so that way next time we meet, we can kind of have a more productive conversation. Right?
Yep.
So here is 288, and here's 294, just for reference. This one up top is the back lot on the Incom property here, and this is the JRD industrial property. So entrances from the existing drives for both of these. The one for the backside here on the 294 would come through the Incom into the back, kind of like we discussed with the prelim stuff and, in here in the gated fenced in area, what you're looking at here within the fence. Sorry, just can't see. You've got these 4 big blocks here. Those 4 blocks are actually 2 containers on each pad. So each one of these containers that hold the batteries, they hold 0.62 megawatts each. The containers are, I know you guys have seen batteries in the past through us doing Solar Smart. So they're about half the size of the containers that are on sites now. They're about 5.5 feet wide, 8 feet tall and 30 feet long. So they go, the way that the system's set up is they go back to back where the doors don't meet each other. Where the doors do meet each other, they go 10 feet spacing. So that's just manufacturer's recommendations and part of the UL 9540A testing results as far as layouts. That's all regulated through the UL, through the testing and propagation of chemistries.
There's 8, is that what I see? There's 8 of them on each.
Yeah.
Yep, so a 5 megawatt system has 8 containers totaling, it's actually 4,998 kilowatts. Yep,
One, they're not stacked on top, it's just one container on the ground.
correct, yeah, well, so yeah, they're on the ground, they're not stacked, yeah,
Yeah.
no. Each one it's a single pad that holds 2.
Yeah.
So the pad would be 13 feet by 31-ish. And then in front here, got all your typical equipment that you would normally see on a solar site. So you've got your inverter, 2 inverters here, transformer, as well as a neutral ground reactor and a controller for the system. So everything comes back to the controller. So all the batteries go through the inverters and into the controller. And what the controller does is it manages the battery system. So it's technically like the battery management system, and this is like the host of it. So it's calculating things, it's taking thresholds of temperatures and voltage, state of charge, state of health for the batteries. It's a pretty sophisticated system. It's got 3 different levels of protections built into it. So these containers here they're liquid cooled versus HVAC that you've seen in the past. Newer technology, it keeps the batteries cooler, it runs more efficient, thus increasing the production of the system. And
Closed loop, no.
correct. Yep. So each module, each module on the battery has its own fitting. So it calls for coolant or rejects it. So that's the efficiency factor in it. And I've got some depictions here of what this looks like. So a single container looks like this, doors on one side, batteries go in the 3 white doors here and the 3 white doors here. So inside this container, there's actually 3 separate containment areas. And that's to separate the power, that's to create more safety nets as far as if something were to happen, it doesn't spread. These are purpose-built containers versus, I mean, I guess you could call the Connex boxes purpose-built, but they're almost retrofitted, you know? And those batteries that we've seen in the past, that we've recently used as well, those batteries get loaded on site. So those are handled on site, which is where the concrete pad around those came into play back then. They come fully assembled, fully tested, they get retorqued, they go through them again when they're on site. Essentially, they come on a truck, you pick it up with the crane and you put it on the pad, and it's about an 8-hour install wiring wise. So pretty advanced system as far as connectability, augmentation and all that. Not that we can augment here, but inside the container, you've got your liquid coolant system, as well as, and this is forced air. So the air kind of comes in the bottom and out the top to actually cool that. So inside here, we've got racks of batteries. If you're familiar with what the previous ones were set up like, you've got racks of batteries, and then you've got converters. So we've got 3 racks of batteries here. So this would be right around 0.3 of a megawatt right here. And then we've got another 0.3 over here, separated by two-hour firewalls with DC converters in between. And really the goal of setting the container up like this for the manufacturer was safety, realistically. The DC converters keep everything running at a optimal. Yeah, and the 3 racks here and the 3 racks here inside that containment area, there's dry pipes. So dry pipes with sprinklers, right? That's my drawing. So a skeleton view of the inside of the container here. You've got your rack areas here. This is where your DC converters, more racks, and then your coolant system here on the end. So inside this, it's already pre-plumbed for a sprinkler system. So what we do is provide a pipe that runs from each container individually outside the gate. And outside the gate, there will be a manifold, and what that meant. I kind of wrote a kind of description of that, but this is the gist of it. The manifold looks something similar to that, typically see them on high rises and stuff like that. They're dry pipes. The fire department connects to it in the event that there is an incident. And it gives them the ability to apply water directly to the source without going anywhere near it. So that's our goal. We really don't want fire department personnel inside the fence line, if possible. If it's something small, it's obviously to the discretion of the fire department. We don't tell them what to do. But these have 8 sprinkler heads in each area, each containment area. Which if you hook up to the pipe outside the gate for this particular container, it would flood the whole thing. So it doesn't just flood like one side and one side. It takes care of the whole container. The chemistry inside of this battery is a lithium iron phosphate. It's the most stable, safest chemistry out there for lithium ion currently. China actually predominantly only uses lithium iron phosphate in their car batteries. In the United States is getting to be going that way as well.
How many volts? What's the voltage on those?
On
On those, like cell of the battery,
volts, I'd have to look through
like 12 volts or not?
I'd have to look through it. I don't have it in my head as far as volts go.
Right.
But inside, so the modules. At one point in time, this was in order. So these modules here, these kind of give you like a little front view here. Each individual ones of these has like probably like about, I'm not sure exactly, but like 1,000 little cells. So it's the little cells that build up to make that pack. And then the packs are individually monitored for heat as well as voltage, overcurrents, all that stuff. And that was supplied in the package as well. Those are the safety nets. So when you're talking lithium ion batteries, there could be some things in your head where some things blowing out, like the vape ones blowing up and the phones and stuff back then. So that comes with the cheap manufactured battery, which are not allowed to be used in these systems. They simply can't ship them with it. These systems all have to be UL 9540 certified on site. And that happens after mechanical completion of the site. So once the site is actually put together and actually wired and running, it gets tested, and then they actually do a certification, a UL certification on site.
And then just, we have a resident asking questions like, are the batteries lithium ion and who's manufacturing the batteries?
Yep, the batteries are lithium ion, they're a lithium iron phosphate chemistry. There's probably about 6 or 7 different types of lithium ion chemistries. And what was the second part of that?
Who's the manufacturer?
The manufacturer is either one BYD or I'm gonna lose it now. BYD is the predominant manufacturer that we would use, but it would depend on supply chain at the time for the manufacturer. They use two different suppliers depending on supply chain.
Right,
Okay. Same ratings on the batteries, so they're all the same as far as ratings and certifications and as far as that goes, each one of these racks now, so we've talked a little bit about how each module is protected through the battery management system, and then that's the module level. It also does go down to the cellular level where it would find a fault inside that pack. And then on the bigger level of it, it monitors each rack. So if it monitors the rack and it sees a fault down here, it can, with the bus views, it will shut that rack off autonomously. So it will go around that, call the operator to come in and actually look at it to fix it. In the event that something else happened in between, if there's two signals, it would signal to call the fire department as well, as a safety net. This is a depiction of,
So it calls, how do you signal, how does the fire department monitor and how do they know which container is signaling?
yep, so there's a monitoring system. So if the monitoring system, battery management system, also called like an emergency management system, EMS, it goes through what they call a SCADA system, which is just a collection of data. And what that does is, in the event that something was going on, if it was something like a fault and it doesn't sense heat or smoke or anything like that, it would just call the system operator to do a service call. And we would be out the service calls within 24 hours on site. And then if there was something bad, say there was a smoke alarm going off, and the heat sensor at the same time, it would call the system operator and the fire department itself. So the fire department doesn't monitor it, they get the call, right? So then when they get to on the site, on the front gate, just like all our solar fields, it's got the emergency call number. And they could call that person and they have the inside look at the container. So now they can tell the fire department, hey, it's container number 8 on the site. You know, and then they could assess it from there. And another part of these,
Only after they call will they know which unit is.
it would be the unique, maybe, it depends on the situation. So when you pull up on site, if there was any kind of smoke whatsoever, you'd be able to know which one it was coming from. That's the unique part about these outdoor ones. As far as energy storage, that I think the biggest challenge in the energy storage business over the past 10 years has probably been the indoor facilities. More recently, in a couple, Chandler, Arizona, and Surprise, Arizona, they were all like indoor facilities, like purpose-built buildings. And what happens is that if it starts smoking, you don't know what's really going on and you don't want to open up that door. So they've had incidences in the past where you house them in a building, say it's a room like this, they can't go in. And they don't know what's going on. So the nice part about these is that they're outside, visible, be able to free flow air through them. And this is kind of a concept of what a site, typical 5 megawatt site looks like. So you can see the double containers here. There's a 6-inch spacing. There's spacing recommendations on the layout from the manufacturer. So these are 6 inches where they meet back to back. Either 14 inches where they meet end to end. But Kurt has requested a site layout with dimensions, so we're working on that to put into the permitting plans, so that will all be addressed. So you know, kind of what these are all just setback from working distances essentially. 10 feet in between the containers and the inverters, another 10 feet in between these.
With overhead wires or underground?
Everything's underground from the street. So in most circumstances, we like to do pad mounted equipment. We always submit for pad mounted equipment to National Grid. Depends on if they can get it. So some sites they've already come back to us and told us what we can and can't have. So we've got pad mounted on all of these sites. There's usually one pole, so we'll come in one pole and then it goes underground to the transformer recloser. and a meter and then our disconnect.
And the wiring inside the fence is underground?
All
or-
underground.
Yeah?
Yep, it comes right into the site underground, right into all the pads.
Between all the modules is underground wiring, control wiring is all underground.
Correct. Yep, everything's underground.
Any lighting in there?
No lighting, no. Lighting would be brought on site from like a tech coming to do some work. Any questions thus far?
I just have one quick one. Can we get a copy of that?
Yeah, you can have this one.
I don't know if you have it tonight, but whatever you're showing us tonight that,
Yeah,
Okay,
okay, yeah, let me,
well, the,
let me bring a
you can
package.
email it to me or.
Yeah.
Sorry, a copy for the board record,
Yeah, I can do that.
in any interested party.
All right, any questions from the board?
Yeah, are these pads fenced in?
Yes.
Yeah, there.
Yes, yep, there's a 20-foot gate, 24-foot gate, sorry, on the entrance for the alleyway. Each one of these has, this site has one gate, so it's a 24-foot gate here that comes in. This is a 24-foot alley here. So that allows for us to get a crane in there to lift the containers in and out. This site here has double gate, so this is a 24-foot gate. This might even be 24. Again, the dimensions will be on Kurt's revision there.
And there's no supposed to be an access road around the whole thing?
Not to my knowledge.
No?
No, I've talked to Dennis about that with the solar, like the solar arrays. There's historically been a road around sites. This is a different use than a solar where we're giving them the ability to put water to these containers outside of the gate. We don't really necessarily want them going around and inside the gate.
Well, what happens if they need to get to a back area?
Right,
They
so
have
if they-
access to everything here?
they have that, yeah,
Free access?
they have free access inside.
Inside?
There's a Knox box on the gate, each gate. For access for the fire department.
Mm, We'll check the bylaws on that.
Well, on the ones that you guys had done on Osgood Road and then Stevens Way, how was that layout?
That's.
I know that was within the solar array.
Yeah,
area.
right.
Right,
It's
and
a little bit-
different.
The roadway is in the solar bylaw for
Right.
around the solar sites.
All right,
The
so
batteries were added, I believe, to those sites after the fact, came back for revisions.
when you say different use, you're talking battery storage as opposed to solar array.
Correct.
You're getting at, so I think there may need to be some clarity as far as the bylaw part,
Exactly.
as far as.
Great,
Exactly.
so actually, I did look at the bylaw today, and
Yeah.
it doesn't, specify about,
A road.
it does have the, for the solar array, but for the, if you look at the standalone energy storage,
Okay,
it doesn't spell it out, so
okay.
I guess it would be, under the purview of the fire department on what they're going to require.
I'm good with that.
Yep, I have a meeting with Dennis next Tuesday to go over all the recommendations that he wants to give to the board, so we would have a better guidance on the next meeting.
Gotcha.
Does that answer your question about access?
Yeah, and they use water?
Yeah, so the preferred method and really only way to suppress because when a battery goes on fire, it goes into what's called a thermal runaway. A thermal runaway is a propagation of heat from the cell to cell on that little cell level inside each module. So the testing behind all of that, it measures the propagation from one cell to one cell. So that kind of dictates what your required suppression would be. With propagation being so low on lithium iron phosphate, the recommendation is for deluge sprinkler heads inside the containers. And with these systems being liquid cooled, a gaseous system doesn't really do anything unless it's like an electrical short. But at that point, you're already starting heat in the batteries, and 9 times out of 10 it will go into a thermal runaway if it happened. So thermal runaway is only suppressed by cold water. So cold water, what you want to do is bring the temperature of that cell down, right? So you want to stop the propagation of cell to cell, which would then stop the propagation of the fire.
I had actually had a discussion with Dennis Carlson and Kurt Mestis, the building commissioner, and They said the idea is to not put the fire out necessarily, is to keep it from spreading to another unit. So the thermal runaway, the water isn't necessarily to put out the fire, it's to keep it cool enough so that it won't jump to the next container.
Yeah, we've had our partners with these, our supplier for the batteries, they've had a couple sites that they've done up in New Hampshire and such, and the only thing that they do is water now. The older style, and that does come into like what actual system you're looking at and what testing has called out for it. So that's where all the recommendations for fire suppression come into play. Different chemistries require different things. Like a nickel, manganese, cobalt, that would require a gaseous system inside the container. As well as now 855 pretty much required, NFPA 855 pretty much requires water as a source for suppression on these systems. And a lot of that stuff is regulated through NFPA's. Predominantly NFPA 855 is for energy storage. And these are all compliant, we have a compliant form as well.
So how much water storage do you need for the water to extinguish the thermal runaway?
So typically, we don't typically store water, we look for sites that are close to a hydrant, right? So the fire department will hook the truck up to the fire hydrant and then hook their hose to the pipe. And then that's how that would be done.
Is there a hydrant near this site?
Yeah, one right out front.
This one may have one, because the Southbridge water runs down the road, the other two sites,
Probably won't.
it might be a different story.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's kind of part of our final ERP with the fire department. So that's something that Dennis and I will talk about specifically for Worcester Road, but the main way to do that would be to hook the truck to the hydrant and to the system. Or a tanker. In some towns, like working with a couple other towns, and they just have tanker trucks, and that's how they would address it. They'd come with 5,000 off the bat and just use that. But it's site specific, and it's all kind of part of that individualized ERP. And each one's different, and that's why each site gets its own training, its own emergency response plan tailored to that site. And that we do that with our consultants at ESRG, Energy Safety Response Group. They're out of Ohio. They do, ESRG does a lot of large scale testing on these as well. They do a lot of like, they test the propagation essentially. They're testing for that UL, right?
So how large of a storage tank do you think you need for?
It would depend on.
To address the thermal runaway very quickly, because it's runaway. So
Yep.
it's an exponential growth. So if you're waiting for the fire department, you've lost a lot of time, and then the runaway just gets a lot
Yep, and then
harder to
going
put out.
back to,
So would it make sense to get, the storage on site rather than rely on the tanker to show up?
kind of goes back to what Randy was saying a little bit about normal not normal, I shouldn't say normal practice, but 9 times out of 10, they're probably gonna look at this and say the best practice is to burn it off. Right, so to let that burn around and drown the rest of it, which is easily done with a tanker truck, which is gallons per minute, gallons wise, if you hook up to one pipe for one container over 2 hours, I believe it's like 10,500 gallons.
But I think the question he's asking, in the time that it takes for a fire truck to get there and hook up the water during that period of time, I mean, the Charlton Fire Department's, I don't know how many miles away.
Yeah, that's the corner of town right there.
Yeah.
Yep.
So,
What is Dennis? Does he have an opinion on this? Yeah.
well,
It's
we
been
haven't
like
heard
Tuesday.
anything from him yet.
Yeah, I've met with them a couple times already, and we just introduced everything, so now it's time to kind of like iron out. He's had some time to look at stuff now, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm hoping to have some kind of letter of recommendation back for the next meeting from him is my goal.
10,000.
I know he's a busy man though.
So, and then we have one of our solar experts on the line who's asking this containment question for the liquid.
Yeah, it's a liquid cooling hazardous, well, it's a right hand.
Yep, I can see it.
bottom corner.
And should a containment system be?
Had-
There is a containment system built in, so if there was a spill outside of a fire, if there was like a leak of the coolant, a normal operation, there's a pan on the bottom that holds like 140% of the liquid that's in the system. Each container holds about 40 gallons of coolant. Typical,
Water
Oh,
glycol.
so
it's a water glycol mixture, just like your car.
Mhm.
Which when a fire happens, that mixes in with the fire, which mixes in with the fire water and that dilution factor, glycol, right? So we use glycol on airplanes, all that stuff. It gets eaten up right in the surface of the dirt, right? All the microbes that eats up the glycol, like within a couple days, it's gone.
How about the containment for the, the sprinkler system? If that's activated,
There's no containment as far as that goes. No,
not on site, no berms on site.
no, it's the intent to not ever happen, right?
Yeah, well, sure is.
All right, any other questions from the board? John, you got a question?
Nope.
Absolutely.
All right, we have no other questions from the board. I'd like to open up a question or comment to the public. If you have a question or comment, please state your name and address for the record, please. All right.
Oh, wait, Ross,
Go right
Sorry.
ahead, Lori. Yep, no problem. Go ahead.
I do have some concerns. I went into conservation and they stated that both of these are in the 100-foot buffer zone. So if there is a fire and you're fighting the fire, what's going to keep it from going into the wetlands? Since part of it is already in the buffer zone.
That's,
What's gonna keep what
How to prevent
specifically?
spill, sprinkler.
Yeah, the glycol, the fire water. I'm just, maybe
So
they'll
Ross-
ask you this as well.
Yeah, so the runoff from a fire event wouldn't necessarily contain all of that, right? So you can kind of think of it as rainwater where you're not really putting it to the source and you're surrounding it. So if you're spraying on equipment that isn't leaking, it's not dragging that with it. But in the event that it does, the biodegradation of glycol is very minimal and it's used daily on airports next to oceans and everything. That just, it breaks down so fast that it doesn't have any accumulation and detriment to the source of the resources.
What about the burnt lithium? Anything in the battery itself?
So
When
if it's-
liquefied?
So these are solid state batteries, so the lithium iron phosphate, it doesn't have a liquid inside of it. It's a solid state battery. So mostly it would just be your phosphorus, right? So, and that stuff collects easily in the ground on the top layer. It doesn't leach in. So remediation factors would follow as far as cleaning that up, as far as topsoil upon testing. And that's all.
So burnt lithium wouldn't end up in the groundwater?
No, so we're talking like lithium salts, right? So we're not talking lithium metal essentially. It's the salts that store the energy. And those aren't, it's not detrimental to the environment.
Okay, thank you.
all right, anyone else? All right, hearing none, seeing none, do we have a motion to continue the public hearing on the special permit application for ZP battery at 288 and 294 Southbridge Road, also known as 169?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to continue it. I just
No,
have,
Go right ahead.
I'll second that motion.
yeah,
Okay, yep,
yeah. Is anybody else gonna review these plans besides Kurt and Captain Carlson? Do we have somebody
Great.
else?
The Conservation Commission will review them,
Okay,
that's great.
and Graves Engineering reviews them as far as the site plan. for special
right, I was
permits.
thinking about more,
But if you're
technical-
talking about the technical part of it,
yeah,
we have,
is everybody comfortable with just having
well, that's,
who we have?
that's under the purview of the board, if they would rather have, say, an expert on these types of battery systems.
Well, it
review.
seems like this is an industry that changes rapidly and improving, thank God. I mean, they're improving in everything. If everybody else is comfortable, I'll go along with it, but I just didn't know if we wanted somebody else to take a look at it.
Yeah, but by way of discussion on that motion, I'd like to also recommend we get something from the Conservation Commission on their findings, or at least an
Mhm.
expert, their expert on their opinion on, especially, you know, a kind of stormwater management almost if a fire event happens.
Actually, you know, on the same note of that, is like Mr. Covert mentioned the containment system. It might be a good idea for us to have that in our records too, what that would consist of, the one you described. tonight.
Definitely.
So.
Yep.
Just so we have it in our records to make sure it's built to that specification.
Right.
You know, We'll approve it, that,
Mhm.
that we make sure, ensure that containment systems, it sounds like it's part of the package, but just to make sure that it is.
Yeah, it should be in the original package I sent along, but if it's not, I do have
Is
that.
it in the, like, the booklet?
Yeah, the technical information
Yeah.
booklet, yeah.
Okay,
There's a lot of stuff in there and believe me, I have 100 more documents that I could give you if you
Yeah.
wanted 1,000 more pages. A lot of that stuff really gets put to Kurt upon
Right.
construction
yeah, I mean,
plans, right?
we'll
So,
rely on him to
Yeah.
make sure that.
Yeah.
it's meeting whatever proper specifications it is, but. As far as having any other expert look at it, we don't have anyone.
conservation, we're
that's
back in
necessary.
conservation next week. For the continued hearings from last time. And Art Allen has given his response back.
Mhm.
Pretty mute on Worcester Road and Larry's. And this one, we have a line being directional for drilling through underneath the wetland. Pretty similar to what we've done on a site, solar site in the past at Partridge.
Mhm.
Yeah, pretty standard. I think they're actually doing it out front for income right now.
Correct.
This, one thing, that I had a conversation with Mr. Cole with Steph, you know, I think it's just good to have this on the record.
For sure.
Is that, you know, previously applications for these battery storage units has been 1 megawatt per unit, and then Mr. Cover explained to me today, what was it, 0.46?
Each individual container is 0.6, we'll say 0.62.
So
Right.
where you add the 8 units together times, you know, 0.6, that's how it's coming up that. Even though the state unit, because of the less than megawatts, that it adds up a total of 5 megawatts.
Yeah,
We
yeah, I
just
think the
have
ones that we have
clarification
on,
that.
yeah, the ones that we have on Partridge or McDougal, I believe are 1 megawatt each.
Right,
That's one
that's-
container, right?
That's
That's a
what we
big one,
typically used to see, and that's why
Yeah.
I just thought it should be clarified.
for sure.
These, so that's how they're coming up to meet that 5 megawatt restriction that based on the per unit.
Yeah.
And you add them together, it does work.
Actually comes up like 4.6.
Well,
Yeah, it's 4998.
yes,
Oh,
it's right under 5, yeah.
We have a motion and a second on the floor. Do we have a motion? All those in favor?
Jane Vincent, I.
Bill Fontaine, aye.
John Smith, I.
Russell
Lisa's
Lehman?
on this,
Yep.
she actually can hear this is special permit.
Yep.
I,
All right, Ross, let me ask the aye. All right. Next up, we have a continued public hearing for ZP Battery Development Company LLC Larry's Way definitive subdivision plan, Sturbridge Road, Griffin Road. Here from the same email before, I'm requesting to continue for the definitive subdivision plans for Larry's Way. And Tom. Colbert. Do we have a motion to continue Larry's Way to November 2nd?
Make a motion to continue the Larry's Way application until November 2nd.
Second,
All those in favor?
Jane Vincent, I.
Bill Fontaine, aye.
John Smith, I.
Alicia Cheek, aye.
Ross Lemansky, aye. All right, next up, we have a public hearing for ZP Battery Development Company LLC special permit application to construct 3 energy storage systems, also known as Larry's Way, located off of Griffin Road. In accordance with sections 200-3.2.6W and 200-7.2.G of the Charlton Zone Bylaw, the Charlton Planning Board will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, October 19th, 2022 at 7:05 in the planning board office in person at the George McKinstry Municipal Building, 37 Main Street, Charlton, Mass. 01507. Ian on Zoom, Zoom meeting ID 211-293-2257 on the request of ZP Development Co. LLC 10 East Worcester Street, Worcester, Mass. 01604 for a special permit to construct 3 energy storage systems. The 3 systems are proposed to be placed on a newly created lot off from Griffin Road. The property currently owned by PCK Realty, 23 Deer Run, Charlton, Mass. 01507. The property is located on the proposed Larry's Way. The property is currently assessed map 27 block C lots 2 and 3. Both lots are located in the industrial general IG zone district. Copies of the site plan application are available for inspection at the planning board office and the town clerk's office during regular business hours. The application is also posted on the town website on the planning board. Any person interested or wishing to be heard should appear at the time and place designated or by Zoom meeting ID number 211-293-2257. I'll go right ahead.
So this is Larry's Way, I guess we thought. So off of Sturbridge Road, the current entrance, current truck entrance there, when you're coming up the hill at the light at 169, we'll be coming in that entryway where the solar connections are currently as well. Coming up and through that gravel, and if you can picture, there's a solar field here, a little one. I don't know if you can really picture it, but I've looked at it so many times, it's burnt in my head. So we'll be off to the left of the drive. These are 3 separate interconnected projects, right? So when we first started looking at this site, we had one here, one here, one here. Through all my discussions, through planning and other towns and talking with fire departments. Big thing with fire departments like to see is the stuff all in one spot. So with this, there are 3 within this one fence. So it might look like more than 5 per project, but it's not. These are 8 containers per project, set up just like this one down here, just 1, 2, 3, right? Kept within one fence for ease of access as well. We've got 3 separate interconnection points down here. So they connect to 3 different lines. So there'll be a pole, there'll be a line coming across to a dead pole. And then there'll be 3 poles after that on the street side with a roadway for National Grid to access those pads.
Are those buildings or are those pole mounted disconnect?
No, yeah, so these are, so the pole, so like I said before too, we kind of come into one pole and then to the pads, right? So that one pole has transformer and recloser for National Grid. And then it goes underground, and in this case, it goes underneath this access road to the transformers, meters, and recloser for us as well. Just like a same thing as you would see on Dresser Hill. Over I don't know if you ever drive down Dresser Hill.
Underground access. So that's just to get to the disconnects or the underground.
This little access?
Yeah.
Yep, exactly. That's just for National Grid. That's just so they can get to their equipment, Technically, they own this equipment. We own everything from this point forward.
Is that within the Mass DOT right of way? I mean, Route 20 is drastically changing in that.
I know it
area.
is, yeah. And that would be something that would be addressed upon a permit anyway through the state.
I mean, well, I'm just, that is, as anybody that drives on Route 20 knows, that's a terrible intersection because it comes down the hill and everything. And if it's gonna be impacted by that, is it gonna impact the visibility of the trucks that go in and out of there?
No, so if you're thinking, can you visualize coming into the property? And you get the telephone poles on, you get the telephone poles on both sides, right? So when you're coming in from 169, turning right into the property, the roadway would be between the first 2 poles. And then, so it's coming in the property and then off to the side for National Grid. We're not making a new curb cut coming off of 20 or disrupting any kind of sight lines.
From a visual and sight lines standpoint? I don't
No, that's
know.
well out of the way. We're probably 40 feet back from the edge of the road.
The trucks already pull out halfway on a Route 20 to get out.
I'm
of
sure, because you
Right.
can't see to the right, right?
So, well, that's what I mean, and now you're putting it in the one location is why they pull out onto Route 20 the way they do, because they can't see past that.
Yeah, there would be
Or-
nothing visually blocking them. Right now it's trees, right? We'd actually be clearing some of the trees there in order to put the poles and the equipment in. So if anything, you might be able to see through the thick a little bit better, but, I mean, yeah, it's far enough set back from the roadway where you wouldn't even be looking at it by the time you're up at the road, trying to see where traffic's at. So anything else on the interconnection part of it? Pretty standard. It's a standard, same thing as solar fields. There's one more meter with the battery storage because if there's a secondary power as well.
Where's the solar field in there today? No,
Right now, poles on this side
that
here.
side of the street.
Yeah, and they're depicted here on the plan. And there's poles on both sides. So I believe the left side goes out to the backfield, the newer one. And the right side goes up to this little guy here. So we'd be going underground, up along the roadway, pretty much along the easement line that they've already got going on. Completely underground like before. 2 RE closers on site.
But are there 3 separate lots here?
There is one lot.
One lot?
Yep. Yeah, this is through the subdivision. This is its own. Eventually,
And how many megawatt is that?
there's 5 each.
Wait a minute. There's 5 each
So there's
on one
3
parcel?
Correct, yeah,
Times
with
three
multiple
parcels.
principal uses being allowed. Per Kurt's letter.
Shouldn't each parcel have their own? It's 5 megawatts per parcel.
Doesn't
Not-
say per parcel.
Each facility is 5 megawatts, however, this is one facility with net fenced area that has a total of 15.
So it's
That's
compliant with the letter of the bylaw, but
Not with the
spirit of
the
the bylaw.
bylaw.
Is that this? Yeah, I don't know what the spirit is. I didn't ever really understood
Intent.
I never really understood the intent of the 5 and where it came from. I think I tried to talk to Randy about that early on. It's National Grid, right? So they would allow up to a 10 megawatt on a 13.8 line.
That's National Grid. This is Charlton.
No, understand. No, I understand. I'm just saying, like, on the flip side of it, that's like, from my point of view, we could go and put 10 on a line if it wasn't here in Charlton, right?
Right.
And so with that, we reduced these already from our original thinking about a year ago. I think we were talking about this first. This was gonna be a 10, 10 and a 5. But we reduced them, all 3 of them to the 5 to meet the requirement of the 5.
Yeah, the intent was 5 per lot, right?
And I think that was the intent.
That's
Yeah.
what I always thought.
But they're using the subdivision clause to virtually divide the lot.
No.
No,
it's not
so this
virtually
is-
divided. There's no division of this.
It's,
This is a new law with all the 3.
It's-
15 megawatts on one law.
it's one lot with the required frontage
And
and
we only
area
allow
for 3
5.
uses.
for-
For 3 uses.
It has it meets all the requirements for space and frontage. Actually, there's a lot of excess frontage on this one. And again, coming back to response, right? So if we did one here, one here, one here, it kind of creates some confusion, right? Which we could do, but that's not something that the landowner wants to do at this point.
Well, I think it has to comply with our bylaw.
Yeah, I know, reading it does.
Yeah, but to the letter of the bylaw, when you apply the subdivision clause, it can comply.
It doesn't really, it doesn't have anything to do with the subdivision, it's just that you guys allow multiple principal uses on one lot, it's one use. It has a required frontage and area for it.
So why not 4? You just don't have enough property for 4.
It's just how many different lines that we're connecting to. Yeah,
But if you had enough room, you could go up to 5 of these 5 megawatts.
there is a point where it comes like overbearing, right? And you don't have enough frontage or space for the use, right? So each project has to meet the space and dimensional requirements per lot, right?
So each use has to comply with the frontage and setbacks.
Correct.
Each use.
I'm sorry, that's not the intent.
That's
of
how
it.
Kurt is interpreting it, but the spirit of the bylaw was 5 megawatts per property.
Exactly.
Per piece of land.
Right.
Was the spirit.
Well, I'm just looking here and there's, lot 2, lot 3 and 17 Griffin Road and 0 Griffin Road.
On that report there,
Yeah,
yeah, because there's,
on your submission.
yes. Yeah, understood. Yeah, so right now Griffin Road is set up into, well, it's like this, these are 2 parcels right now, right? C7 or C2. This one on this one here, so this one's got solar out back, so through, not to get off topic with special permits, but through the definitive, we've split this up into multiple different lots to have per Kurt's request really for all of these subdivisions to have each use on its own parcel. Go for it. And you won't be able to see the lot lines of the
Yeah.
subdivision on this,
Yeah.
so we can get into that with the revisions that come in for November 2nd, I'm hoping.
So with the definitive subdivision, they'll all be have on individual lots.
That will be on one, right? And then every other use that's on the property now, that's just on one piece of property will be individualized onto each parcel that, so the scrap, trucking, that stuff's getting split up and the solar is all getting split up.
Yeah.
So then this would be its own parcel of the use of energy storage.
Okay.
With technically the ability to do multiple principal uses per property. I think Kurt kind of put that in his letter as well.
Might, well, we could add, might want to add your opinion on this one, because this is a huge
Absolutely.
Precedent.
issue, yeah.
It's
Yeah,
gonna set a
huge
precedent and I
there
don't
is
want
a-
the precedent that it's presenting.
The intent
to be
and
set.
spirit of the
Right.
bylaw. So, I think it's a question that needs to be answered, to make sure that we,
Before we go too much further.
right.
All right. Are there any other questions from the board members? John, you have a question? Or Alicia?
Nope.
No, come on, John.
No,
All right, the board doesn't have anything, open it up to the public. If you wish to speak or have a question or comment, please state your name and address for the record, please.
Lori Degnan, Osgood Road.
Go ahead, Lori.
I have to side with Jean on this. You're going to be setting a precedence. We allow 5 per lot. If they put 24 of these on one lot, so 15 megawatts, then, Larry can do what he wants with the other 2 lots. Now, I'm fond of Larry, so I hate to even speak against this, but if it was a home builder, you wouldn't squish things onto one lot and not, there's 2 other lots there. The intent of the bylaw is to maximize it, because this isn't helping solar. It's a profitable venture, and more power to them for getting creative with subdivisions so you can add more than 5 megawatts. But I think everyone has to follow by the same rules. And I think you'll be opening a can of worms, because who's to prevent Datarondos from saying, okay, you let them do that on one lot, then I'll add more on my lot. So I think rules are there to follow. That's it.
Thank you, Lori. Any other questions or comments? All right, hearing none, seeing none, do I have a motion to continue the public hearing for ZP Battery Development Company LLC at Larry's Way, which is on Sturbridge Road and Griffin Road?
I'll make a motion to continue the public hearing for ZP Battery Dev for Larry's Way.
I second.
All right, all those in favor?
Jean Vincent, no.
Bill Fontaine, aye.
John Smith, aye.
Alicia, you can vote on this special permit.
Aye.
All right, Ross Mancy, aye. It's 4-1. All right, next up, we have a public hearing, ZP Battery Development Company LLC, Porter's Way Definitive Subdivision Plan 325, Worcester Road, also known as Route 20. All right, in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 41, Section 81T in the Charlton Subdivision Regulations and Zoning Bylaw, the Charlton Planning Board will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, October 19th, 2022 at 7:10 PM in the planning board office in person and on Zoom meeting ID 211-293-2257 in the George C. McKinstry Building, 37 Main Street, Charlton, Mass. On the application of ZP Devco LLC, 10 East Main, East Worcester Street, Worcester, Mass. 01604 for subdivision approval to construct a 3-lot subdivision known as Porter Way at 325 Worcester Road, Route 20. The property contains approximately 31 plus or minus acres. The property is located on the northern side of Worcester Road. The property ID is Assessors Map 37, Block A, Parcel 4, in the zone Business and Enterprise Park and Agricultural. Copies of the site plan and application are available for inspection at the planning board office in the town clerk's office during regular business hours. Any person interested or wishing to be heard will be able to attend the meeting in person at the time and place designated or via Zoom meeting ID number 211-293-2257. All right,
I'm gonna request to continue this. We have comments from Graves that we're addressing.
okay,
So that's kind of just in the same boat with the other two.
all right.
I have a question about it. I mean, I gotta.
Yeah, go ahead. If you, I'll open it to the public in a second. We'll just have any comments from the board. All right. So the applicant has requested a continuance. Are there any questions or comments from the board?
None.
All
No,
right. Go ahead, John. Nothing?
nothing, no.
Alicia Cheek, nothing.
At this time, I'd like to open the hearing up to the public. Any one from the floor, just state your name and address for the record. Go right ahead, sir.
Terrence Fontaine, I received a letter, I'm assuming it abuts the back end of my property. I'm
Okay.
assuming. And I'm wondering, when they say subdivision, you mean houses or?
I can
Go right
answer
ahead.
that.
Go
Yeah.
right ahead.
So no, with these projects, there's a lot going on, and actually, it just so happens like all three of these projects have a lot kind of going on in the properties. So in the past, on 325 Worcester Road, like there was a sawmill, and then there's a house out back. So Kurt Meskis over here, has recommended us to do definitive plans on all of these to make it its own separate lots. So nothing's gonna be housing. One use is the old sawmill building. One use is the house, and the other lot would have this weird.
So it would have
Yeah, if you'd like to,
More
he already
those
has
things.
it, but
What's that?
more of the,
Batteries.
Yeah, just take a quick pic.
if you like to, this
million.
This one shows this property as well as the
Really?
property surrounding it, so it might give you a better understanding on where everything's located. They have the home that's back here, and then the sawmill is up close to the
That's my,
old mill.
that's my.
So the battery storage area is looking down here. On this, that's what they're creating a new lot.
Tucking in the bottom right there.
Yeah, on this parcel right here is where they're proposing to place the batteries.
Yep.
Yeah, it's in
So,
the previously disturbed area. That's like a log laydown right now.
so that's where they're proposing to put
Any other?
Well, that's gonna be continued.
Exactly,
Okay.
yep. It'll, November 2nd?
November 2nd, we'll actually be hearing the subdivision on this one, November 2nd. Special permit for this one on November 19th and November 2nd. 16th. The special permit, the battery storage part for this application will be on November 16th. However, the subdivision will be November 2nd.
It's two separate
Two
permits.
separate.
One's a
things.
special permit to do the batteries, one's a permit for the subdivision.
Yeah, to
Okay.
divide the land.
So it's a formality.
Do you have any comments though while you're?
Well, I mean, I don't want that shit in my backyard.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm being honest with you, I
Yeah,
don't,
yeah.
I want it in my backyard.
Yep.
I
Okay.
don't want it to interfere with the wildlife that's behind my, not that I enjoy coyotes the whole time, but I mean, they're part of the wildlife, they're part of the
Yeah.
ecosystem, and you know, I don't want to hear anything. I already hear Route 20 as it is, so it's not like, I mean, I like the woods behind my yard.
Gotcha.
How big's your lot?
It's 3.4 something. I think. I mean, I do hear people hunting back there once in a while.
Go ahead, Colin.
Yeah, my name's Colin Novick. I'm with the Greater Worcester Land Trust and also the Charlton Heritage Preservation Trust. And I'm particularly interested, special permit gives planning board a lot of leeway to sort of look at the lot and particularly from a public good, from an open space and recreation point of view. This lot is crossed by Hayes Pond Brook, which runs sort of from Brackett Hill Road and Carroll Hill Road, sort of coming southeast across, and then it goes straight across the site, runs parallel to Route 20 and goes into Buffinville.
Hazebrook?
It doesn't have a name, but it starts at Hayes Pond.
Hayes Pond, yeah.
So I'm calling it Hayes Pond Brook because that's where it starts.
Right on.
I can't find anything else on the map.
We
But
just- we
that-
just named it.
That brook runs straight across the site and the entrance to the site. And the southern end of the site, south, southeast, southwest is all wetland. Obviously, you're not building in the wetland. But there's an opportunity between the Mid-State Trail, which is immediately to the west, and the Cow Tunnel, and Hammond Woods, which is already conserved. Hammond Woods is 27.37 acres. To look at that southern tier and potentially as part of the special permit process, look at whether or not it's possible to see some level of conservation going on, because that's an important beltway, as he's pointing out. There's a lot of wildlife back there. It's working. But if we start to build a whole bunch of stuff in there, we can fragment it. And there's an opportunity, if you're going to be doing development, potentially to secure the corridor for conservation in the areas you wouldn't be building anyway, and allow sort of long-term, some level of comfort that at least the integrity of that wetland and brook system will stay intact going forward. So potentially wanted to throw that out there early, so you have a chance to sort of potentially talk with your partners and landowner to see whether or not, as you move forward with the special permit process, whether or not you might be able to do a public good by looking at that wetland and dedicating it to conservation, as it would link, again, the Mid-State Trail corridor to Hammond Woods and would protect a large segment of that Hayes Pond Brook corridor. Thanks.
The bottom section,
Yeah,
like
basically,
right where the goes across.
it's running across here. I mean, if you look, see
Yeah,
the wetland.
this is the boundary.
Yeah, if you look at sort of where the wetland, well, yeah, but if you look at the vegetation, it's a little bit wider than that. But
Yeah, no, I
nevertheless,
agree.
nevertheless, it's this beltway in here and it hooks up a bit this way and up a
Yep.
bit this way.
Okay. Keep in mind.
Good planning, good forethought.
Actually, I just recently spoke to the landowner of the property. If you're looking at that plan to the left, to the
Yep.
west side of it.
Yep.
That he actually wants to, cut those parcels off and potentially put them into conservation or anything. That's over where the cow tunnel is
Right.
and everything there. He wants to permanently, put those lands into conservation, so that would make the connection there.
That'd be really great to sort of work on that. Again, while we're all sitting around the table with special permit, there's a lot of creative leeway. There's an opportunity to look at things like our open space, our trails, our connections, and sort of say, okay, if we're allowing this special use, which is a little unconventional, how can we at the same time do something good for the town?
Just raising that, yeah.
Go ahead, sir. Eric Brandon, 54 Hanson Road, backside of this. So you said you're gonna put it on the part that's already disturbed?
Yeah, are you
While
familiar
you're
with the
in
lot?
Yeah, I'm looking at it over. there.
Yeah, so if you come in the lot, you cross the wetlands, you start coming up the drive. On the right-hand side of the drive.
Yeah.
This gentleman there, the mass tree guy.
Yeah.
He has like log laydown area. It would be the closest part of that area to 20, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's already cleared out. You're not
It's all
clear-
clear.
You're not clearing out additional trees.
We're not disturbing anything as far as trees go, yeah.
Okay.
We would just be digging for electrical and paths.
Yeah, and that's already kind of a
Yep,
scar on the earth, so.
yeah,
that's the-
yeah, it's existing gravel laydown,
How big is the whole lot?
the whole lot.
31 acres.
30-something.
Yeah.
24.84 acres.
Yeah, this part here is an ag, right? So there's a separation of boundary for the BEP zone in like this third of the property on the right-hand side.
Which also happens to be one of the headwaters for Hammond Pond. That ag section all drains in with brooks running into Hammond Pond immediately to the east.
Where's Hammond Pond?
Hammond Pond is
Up to the
right here.
Up there.
and there's like a series of brooks that are leading into that. And then this stream system has one branch that comes down out of Hammond Pond and joins that before it crosses 20 and goes to Buffalo.
All right, any other questions? from the public?
You'd asked about lights on the other one before, so this is gonna be dark.
Yeah, there's no
You're not
lights
gonna have
proposed on
security
these
lights.
systems at all. No, no.
But you're also talking about the last one, potential danger for fires. And that's like, how far away from like a hydrant is that?
Yeah, and that's all.
The answer.
Yeah,
Um,
to go off of that, it's kind of decided through an individualized ERP with the fire department as to how he wants to address it. So that's something to be discussed next week with him, as far as that goes.
There's a hydrant.
Ross, I have a question if we can.
There is,
hold on.
yeah. I don't know if water's under the road right there or not. It would make sense for it
There's
to be in
water
my
on
head.
both sides of the road coming up Carroll Hill Road.
Coming up
There's
20
wetlands.
though, because I know there's a hydrant on the bottom, Richardson's corner at the market there. And then there's nothing in between until you get up to
I think
the,
it's active.
to the gym.
Yeah.
So to me, I was looking at the map, it would make sense to go up and around with it. I'm assuming there might be water in the road, but I'm not sure.
Jim,
I don't think, coming from Oxford, I think it's dry.
Yeah, that would make sense.
The
'cause it's
state
so-
won't let it, activate.
Yeah, that makes
I had
sense.
a stupid question. The hydrants that they're putting in, are they going into a well or are they going into some sort of a,
No, they're now on town water.
okay,
It's a
The new
pipeline
ones.
from Southbridge Water
Okay.
Supply.
Go right ahead, Lori.
I just have a question. How many lots are we talking about in there and how many containers of batteries?
Through the subdivision, this is getting split into 3 parcels. So one parcel will have the energy storage on it of 5 megawatts. And then, there's a house on the other to the north. And, the other parcel will have the existing barn that used to be the old sawmill back when Bill was operating.
Okay, so you're not going to go for 15 megawatts because here you are, 3 parcels again, just like Larry's Way. So what's to prevent you from saying to the board, you let me do this over here, I want to do it now for 20.
Yeah, so that, to touch on that, the way that these projects get interconnected is into individual feeders. Right here, we have an Oxford line out front on Route 20 that goes to the North Oxford substation. So this is, in Charlton, is pretty unique. We've got a Snow Street substation in Southbridge, and we've got the West Charlton sub over by Larry's Way subdivision plan. And we've got the North Oxford substation on the east side of Charlton. So this one connects to that feeder. The other projects that you were referring to are individually connected to 3 different feeders. It's a unique spot down that corner of town where all the feeders are, in close proximity to the substation.
Okay, if they increase the Oxford substation, enlarge it at all, will you be back before the board asking for 2 more lots of batteries?
That's not the intent, no. No. So
Okay,
National Grid, the way that the battery storage works is that it charges during the day while solar is producing. It discharges at night to utilize that storage during times of peak demand. So right now, during the day, we have solar getting generated with really nowhere to go except for on the lines, right? And we either have to use it, it gets lost through the heat, and all that. So the goal through, it's a Clean Peak Energy Standard, through the Baker administration. It sets forth goals for the state to have X amount of battery storage by 2030. I say X because that number increases every day. We have a lot of offshore wind coming in, and I know it's a little off subject of this, but it does play in. So the offshore wind, there's 1,600 megawatts worth of offshore wind coming to be injected into the Southeast Cape by 2026 and more after that. How much?
I understand that. Secondly, the abutter, I think he has concerns, and the number one thing is safety, health and safety between solar fields and batteries. So that's why we had discussed using the same guidelines for batteries as solar. And the fire chief was on our committee as well. So the importance of having that exterior road around the perimeter, it's so you can contain any fire on site. So it doesn't jump and go into the woods and then up to Carroll Hill. So I think we have to think safety. And even Attorney Carizzi stated at a hearing, we have a lot of power with the order of conditions. We didn't need all our bylaws, he stated. So here we have an opportunity to use our order of conditions to provide health and safety for the abutters. We're not saying no to batteries. We've been very proactive with batteries, but number one thing is safety. And it's a small price to put an access road around the perimeter. So these are things that I'd like to see on all the battery fields. So, and that will make the abutter, I'm sure, sleep better at night. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Lori. Any other comments or questions at this point? All right, we have a motion to continue the public hearing for ZP Battery Devco LLC at Porter Way definitive subdivision plan.
Make a motion to continue the ZP Battery Dev at Porter Way for their subdivision plan. Continue until November 2nd.
I second.
All right, all those in favor?
John Smith, aye.
Bill Fontaine, aye.
Jane Vincent, no.
Alicia Dick, aye.
Nancy, aye. All right. Thank you very much.
Quick question, you
Go ahead.
said the 16th for the other special permit, was that right?
Yeah, 16th on the special permit.
16th on the special
16th.
permit for
Okay.
Porter Way.
All right,
Thank you, guys.
thank you. Have a good one. All right, next up, we have a continued public hearing for White Development Corporation, 4 reduced frontage lots, special permit, and 1 conforming A&R lot on Smith Road. Attorney Mark Donahue.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Mark Donahue on behalf of White Development. To just refresh your recollection with regard to this special permit, the land in question has previously been approved by this board as a 25 lot subdivision. Most recently back in signed a plan that was endorsed back in September of 2021. This is the same land as shown on that subdivision. What's now proposed are 4 lots that are filed pursuant to section 5.13 of the bylaw for the larger retreat lots. And then 1 classic A&R lot, for lack of a better term, that's also shown on the plan and is subject to the special permit. We made a presentation, I think actually back in August, with the engineers with regard to this. There was a procedural question that was posed then about when it should be clear in the record as to which plan the developer's proceeding with. And we had proposed back in August some language for a condition of approval that made it clear that that decision had to be made before any development proceeded in any fashion on the lot. And I think you were going to have that reviewed by town council, and Randy can probably report on that. Since we've also been before you in August, there's been some exchange of letters and review letters between Garrier and Hellman, our design engineers, and Graves Engineering. Most recently culminated with Graves' letter of October 6th, which I think signed off on any engineering type issues. Noted in that the applicability of the Charlton stormwater rules and regulations and the possible applicability. And we certainly don't disagree that there may be applicability, that we would obviously have to deal with the Conservation Commission under your bylaw for stormwater and land disturbance. So I think that's kind of the status right now. I'm glad to try to answer any questions you may have.
Go right ahead, Randy.
A couple items of clarification. I did check with town council on that. They are permitted to have two separate applications on the same property. I understand why they do it. They're keeping their options open. What would have to happen if they decide to pursue one over the other? They would have, assuming you're planning to file the plan with the registry of deeds. Mr. Donahue, is that your intent to file it? This plan?
We will be filing it at some point, certainly. The condition that I had proposed to the board back in August 10th, and I'm glad to forward it again, was before any development or building permits were issued for any lots or the conveyance of any lots pursuant to the special permit, we would have to obtain from you a rescission of the subdivision plan pursuant to chapter 41, section 81W, and record the rescission at that time also.
Right, so they would have a rescission of the subdivision plan should they decide to go forward with the special permit plan for the reduced frontage lots. So we just ensure that they do one, whichever one they end up going with, if the other one gets rescinded.
Okay.
And really, the only outstanding issue with the Graves report on this application is whether these individual lots will need a stormwater permit on the current Charlton stormwater regulations, which decision would be determined by the Conservation Commission and the building department when they're submitting for permits to actually build homes. Because until you know what they're actually building, they can't determine whether they have some stormwater regulations or not.
And in that regard, I would note that there are, as you can see on the plan that was submitted with the application, fairly extensive wetlands that traverse the lot. So there's no doubt about the jurisdiction of the Conservation Commission one way or the other. So the issue will get cleaned up there when we're before the commission for either one lot or all five at one time.
Are there any questions from the board?
No questions.
We're still just continuing it, or?
It's ready. The board wants to make the motion to get a decision on the application.
Is there anyone from the public that has a comment or question? All right. There's no comment or question from any of the board members. Is there a motion to close the public hearing?
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing on the White Development Corp. On Smith Road.
Second that,
All those in favor?
Jean Vincent, I.
Bill Fontaine, aye.
John Smith, aye.
Alicia, this is a special permit. You can vote on this.
She's not muted. I don't know.
What,
She might not
just to
hear it.
close the public hearing, how many votes do they need? Just majority?
We have four, so we're okay with John. I mean, at least you can't vote, but we'll have to get the four.
4 out of
But
5.
it is
Perfect.
majority, yeah, 4 out of 5.
All right, aye, all right,
Close.
all right. Do we have a motion to approve the White Development Corporation for 4 reduced frontage lots, special permit and 1 conforming A&R lot with the condition that before any permits are issued, you have to rescind either the subdivision approval or this plan with 4 reduced frontage lots and 1 conforming A&R lot.
And it also will have the condition that, they will have to comply with the Charlton stormwater
Yeah, they'll do that when they
regulations
file.
if required.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you want to vote
How much?
all in one on the special permit and the A and R?
Cause that's what this is,
It's all-
that's all that's in front of the board as far as it,
Not separately the A
correct.
and R and separately
Yeah.
the special permit.
because I
they're
think
both-
that the,
Yeah, one
Lim-
lot, it's the A and R lot, the one.
yeah, cause there with that,
Yeah.
the lot 5, would that mess up the subdivision?
I guess.
Even that regular frontage A&R lot, or that'll skew the subdivision plan, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
so
it
one,
has to-
so
It
let's
really
just say
should be part of the
if they
same
sell
app-
the A&R lot,
Yeah,
Yeah,
then they'd have to rescind the subdivision.
it has to.
So it triggers that.
right, so, yeah, it will affect the, original subdivision.
Yeah.
So just one vote.
That's,
One
is
vote,
that right?
correct.
One
That
vote,
is
because that's
correct.
what's in front of us.
In this
as one,
particular
presented
case,
as
that's what
one.
should be done.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve the special permit for the White Development Corp. for the 4 reduced frontage lots and the 1 conforming A and R lot on Smith Road.
Second that.
All right, all those in favor?
Gene Vincent, I.
Bill Fontaine, aye.
John Smith, aye.
Alicia? No. All right, Ross Messier, aye. Unanimous. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you. Thanks very
Very
much. Have a good
Yeah.
evening, everyone.
All right, next up, we have Sturbridge Road Solar Farm LLC, North Sturbridge Road Solar Farm Array. They're looking for
They
continuance.
finally,
They've requested
Yeah.
for their annual approval extension.
yeah, they, have, actually 3 different, extensions they need to request based on the original approval of the application.
Yep.
The edge, if you've read the letter, they were held up because of the connection to the grid by ironing out where the poles could go and everything, so.
All right, we'll do it as 3 separate
Yeah,
ones
we'll do
since they're all
three-
3 separate dates. So the first would be Bill motion to approve the annual approval extension for North Sturbridge Road Solar, the site plan approval to November 18th, 2023.
I'll make a motion to,
We'll start with Druid.
the North Sturbridge Road to, extend it to November 18th, 2023.
Second that,
All those in favor?
Gene Vincent, I.
Bill Fontaine, aye.
John Smith, aye.
Ross Messier. All right, do we have a motion to approve the scenic road special permit?
I'll make a motion, we approve the North Sturbridge Road Scenic Road Special Permit Extension until November 26th, 2023.
I second.
All those in favor?
Gene Vincent, I.
Bill Fontaine, aye.
John Smith, aye.
Ross Lemansky, aye, it's unanimous. All right, next up, we have a request to extend the Luna Meadow subdivision annual approval extension to November 3rd, 2023.
I'll make a motion to extend this is the Lunar Meadows subdivision annual extension to November 3rd, 2023.
Second that,
All those in favor?
Gene Vincent, I.
Bill Fontaine, aye.
John Smith, aye.
Ross Mancy, aye. It's unanimous.
No, can I-
All right.
Thank you, members.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. All right, next up, we have some minutes.
Their last meeting has become a hot button topic.
Yeah.
The presentation of the large solar facility, a lot of public interest in it, so that's why
Okay.
it's running.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes of October 5th meeting as presented.
Second that,
All those in favor?
Gene Vincent, I.
Bill Fontaine, aye.
John Smith abstain.
Ross Mancy, aye. All right,
Yeah, the last item we have tonight, this is,
it's a letter in the back of the
other
packet.
business, yes, had, received in writing from, a butter, to the property where the special permit was approved for the, podcast LLC on Little Market Road, and they trying to appeal the planning board. I received it the day before the appeal period ran out, and I sent them a letter that day, because I didn't wanna, I wanted to make sure they had it in a timely manner, but they missed the appeal period. And I explained to them, you don't appeal to the board, you have to appeal to the court. So, and I said that, because of the way this application was handled, they will get a chance to speak again about, 'cause
Correct.
a lot of people are, to me, not seeing if it's actually gonna even be a problem. They've decided, so he hasn't had an opportunity to see if it's gonna work or not, and we
Yeah.
report back to the board, have the dog board report to the board. So they will have an opportunity to speak, and at that time, the board can determine if what he's doing is working, or, if something needs to be changed over there, so. I think to some neighbors, it just don't want it, so. But they will be given an opportunity
Right.
to voice their concerns, when it comes back before the board.
And that's we what, sometime in December?
Yeah, I think it's gonna
Okay,
be sometime in December. Probably will end up, actually, honestly, we'll probably end up getting in January by the time it gets renoticed and everything.
okay. And we have all the letters on file that we've received on this.
Yeah, we're keeping everything with the application. I mean, we haven't had any complaints about noise. We just have complaints when people saying, I don't want it there. So, so far, we haven't received anything as far as an actual complaint over noise.
I've been by there numerous times and I really don't see any activity.
I don't either.
Yeah, I don't know if he is actually doing it, anything at this point. I don't know. So,
I can't see anything, but this could be the times I'm there is,
Correct.
Bad
Oh, yeah,
times.
Not there, yeah.
not that
Agreed.
I'm there, I drive by.
No, correct. Yeah.
I'm not stalking them, I'm
Understood.
not stalking
Dog whiskers out the window.
them.
All right.
As long as we include this letter from the Babons in our review in.
yeah, I'm putting everything that I receive in the file, and, well, when the time comes for them to come back before the board, we'll share all this
Right.
information we gathered.
Even though it says appeal, it's just we'll lodge it as a complaint or a.
Right. I just trying to explain to them that we can't do an appeal, but they will still be given an opportunity when the time comes.
All right, does anyone have anything else?
Be sure to go to town meeting on Monday.
Yeah.
Monday the 24th is town meeting.
Okay.
Special town meeting.
Yeah.
Just thought I'd throw that out
Okay,
there.
no, good reminder. Good reminder.
Planning board does not have anything on the
No, it's
agenda.
Feels good.
I can't actually attend the phone, which is, normally I can, but my wife is having an operation that
Okay,
day, so.
gotcha.
But there's no planning board
We have
activity
nothing
on the
on-
warrant,
no.
so we're fine.
Yeah. Clean, clear.
I'll be there.
Gotcha.
How was the candy, Gene? Was it all right? I saw you eating a piece.
Oh,
I was gonna dangle it in front of you.
I saw it. I saw it. I saw it.
I got it, there were too many motions all at one time, I couldn't get rid of the piece in.
Very busy, John. Very busy.
There's still a lot left, John. Lots-
Oh,
it's up to you.
Okay, okay.
All right, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second that.
All those in favor?
Gene Vince and I.
Okay, now.
John Smith, aye.
Shirley Strik, aye.
Ross Massey, aye.
Okay, so
guys
is that
later.
we-
Good night, everyone.
See you, Alicia.
Good night.
Good night.